Welcome to Mystara for a beefy one, as today we're looking at undead of the known world, the ones you aren't going to find hanging out in the other settings. We've also got our fair share of regular undead like zombies, vampires, and Keith Richards, but those have been covered to death on other channels. This is about the undead found in the various Mystara books that somehow never got borked into other settings. I did split this video. It was running way long on monsters, so I decided to do the Savage Coast undead in their own video, as there were quite a few of them in that book as well. But enough build-up. I'm Mr. Welch, and it's time to talk undead, because ghouls just want to have fun. Going in no particular order, because I pulled these from all three monster manuals as well as the rule cyclopedia, we've got the Agarat. This is a ghoul-like creature that does hang around with ghouls and is virtually indistinguishable from a distance. They're considered by some to be a subrace of ghouls and one of the more dominant variants. They will boss around the ghouls they seem to attract, though their command of ghasts or other ghoul subraces is unknown. The two abilities that set Agarats above ghouls is first their resistance to damage from non-magical or silver weapons. They do have more hit points as well, so they are some of the tougher ghoul variants. But their most devastating attack is their scream. They can only do it so often, but it acts as a ranged energy drain, though one with a saving throw. Thankfully for everyone who hates energy drain, which would be, well, everyone, this is only a temporary effect, but it is an area of effect, so be warned. Agarats are few in number, so you'll only meet one in a ghoul pack normally. Any more than that, and you're looking at a lot of lost levels very quickly, and nobody wants that. The Dark Hood, or Rorfir, is an incorporeal undead that resembles a specter, mainly being a floating robe with a hood. It has no face, and that's a major point, as you'll find out. Unlike most incorporeal undead, the Dark Hood does not feed on life energy, it feeds on fear. It will terrify a creature into fleeing, pursuing the creature and feeding off the sheer fear until the creature usually meets a nasty fate at the hands of somebody else, either a monster or a natural hazard like a cliff. Once the creature is dead, the Dark Hood floats off fully sated. They actually do little damage themselves, but everything they do is a save versus fear. The trick is, the more intelligent the creature, the better its imagination, and the more vulnerable they are to the Dark Hood. So a creature needs to fail the saving throw to avoid the effects of the Dark Hood. A success means the creature has imagined the worst imaginable thing and will flee from the IRS auditors that only he can see. They can take quite a beating in combat. You do need magic weapons to hurt one. Typically, once they get someone to flee, they'll just leave the combat and pursue that one prey. They possess genius-level intelligence, and they will leave a battle if it starts to turn against them. They will also ally with various evil creatures to drive prey to them. The Dark Hood eats the fear, and their partner eats the body. The ghostly Horde are the haunted remains of an army that was thoroughly crushed in a battle, especially if they met their defeat through the use of magic on the part of the enemy. There's no easy way to destroy a ghostly Horde. It's tied to the battlefield that created it, even if the battle is lost to memory. The Horde is normally invisible from a distance, and there's no danger of them attacking you outside their own territory. However, when you cross into the old battleground, the characters will need to pass a series of saving throws to avoid detection. If the first saving throw is failed, the character that fails can see the Horde. The Horde will just stand there staring at the character. Those that succeed obviously don't see a thing. The characters that failed their saving throw have to take another one, and if they fail that one, then the ghostly Horde takes up a hostile pose, otherwise they just stand there. Then they have to take a third saving throw, and if they fail that one, the ghostly Horde attacks. The Horde will only attack those that can see it, and despite often numbering in the hundreds or thousands, will only attack with a single member of the Horde. If the character defeats his attacker, the Horde turns invisible to them again. If the Horde member wins, the character falls unconscious for several minutes, but wakes up with full knowledge of what happened to the Horde and the terror they felt during the slaughter. The Horde will only attack those that can see them, so casting Detect Invisibility at your friends sparring with the army that only he can see is a very bad idea. The Grey Philosopher I've already covered in the Best Monsters of Mystara way back in the beginning of the channel, but as it's been several years since that video, I'm going to cover them here as well. The Philosopher in life was an evil cleric of some power that died while pondering some great question that would further the cause of evil, like how to make CenturyLink's customer service line even more frustrating. Now they can't rest until they figure out the answer to that question. The Philosopher appears as an incorporeal hooded figure seated typically on a throne that doesn't do anything but think. It won't even defend itself. You do have to hit it with a magic weapon, but other than that, it's helpless. What it does have that makes it so nasty is the malices. These are the evil thoughts that it spits out while it ponders the big question. And the malices represent some truly evil stuff, like hiring only customer support that barely speaks English. Have your 24-hour customer support line close at 8 p.m. and don't tell anybody. Close your main office, but keep listing it as open on your web page, or have the automatic call center transfer all calls between 5 departments randomly that don't actually have any live people working at any of them. Those kind of evil thoughts. The malices attack on sight and die to a single hit, though you do need a magic weapon to hit them. The problem is they're limitless. Kill one, another one immediately manifests. They can pass through solid surfaces in any direction, and quite a distance from the philosopher. Once the Malices find you, it's a race against time, as they will eventually whittle down your resources and health, as you won't get any time to rest. And when you do finally kill the philosopher, watch out. Then he finally figures out the answer, and in a death wail, will curse the party. Save or lose some dexterity. He is a flavorful villain, if a bit one note. The Nightshades are a trio of creatures that I believe have been borked into all other settings as well. I know you fight a Nightwalker in Neverwinter Nights too. But they got their start in Mystara, and they were featured heavily in the Master level modules. Their purpose has changed over the years, but originally they were the bully boys sent by the Entropic Immortals to get rid of pesky rivals on the Prime Planes. You've got the Nightwalker, the Nightcrawler, and Nightwing, who represent a black silhouette of a humanoid, a worm, and a former Batman sidekick, or a bat. It's hard to tell those two apart sometimes. They are powerful and they come with a purpose, to kill the people that have been annoying their patron. If you are wondering if you are ready for immortality, see if you've been attacked by a 20-foot-tall humanoid made entirely out of shadow and hosting an arsenal of deadly tricks. If the answer is yes, then you're ready to start your quest. They would normally be hard to see, but their other abilities spoil the surprise. First, the area becomes very cold, dropping to just above freezing before the creature arrives. Second, all food items and potions spoil immediately upon approach. Nightshades share several traits. They can cause a save or die on a hit, have a large array of spells for use, require powerful magic items to even hurt them, can summon other undead, and oddly enough, only take half damage from dragon breath. Nightcrawlers are the giant worm-like creatures. They have an even tougher save or die roll, can swallow human-sized creatures whole, and for a treat, can cast Reduce on larger creatures, just like the spell. Nightwalkers are 20-foot-tall giants. They can destroy weapons and armor on a hit, in addition to regular damage. It can also use a Cursing Gaze to give a creature permanent penalties on attacks and saving throws. The Nightwing do not poison like the others. Instead, they turn their victims into giant bats firmly under control of the Nightwing. They can also drain the magic items of their abilities, something that can't be reversed. As these things tend to have hundreds of hit points and are immune to a lot of spells and effects, you might want to wait till the party is pretty high level before unleashing one. Sacrals are created when victims of a massacre are left to rot and the perpetrators escape justice. It resembles a human skull and can be hard to spot if it's at the site of a massacre where there's a lot of human skulls. One way to tell if a sacral is present is there will always be a mist covering the location, even if there shouldn't logically be any. Sacrals attack with the mist, turning them into a hardened rope-like tendril that they can attack two targets with at the same time. If the tendril hits, it begins choking the target. Once a day, the sacral can unleash a screech that acts exactly as a slay living against one single target. They can also animate dead several times a day, something useful when you're stuck at the location of a slaughter. They can only be hit by magic weapons, but an exorcism or dispel evil spell will release the trapped souls and destroy the sacral. The Druge and its related kin are undead spirits, straight from the spirit world. Not sure how you turn a nature spirit undead, but it is possible. The Druge resembles severed body parts, a skull, an eye, and two hands. They all work independently of each other, but they're still the same creature. Like the Nightshade, they are all save or die on attacks and spoil all perishables in 30 feet. Worse, they can also kill off all insect and plant life in the same radius if they remain there for more than an hour. They can cast some spells, but lose all abilities during daylight. The Druge coordinates its attack. The eye can paralyze, the skull can frighten, and the hands can latch on to the victims until they fail their saving throw and die. To kill a Druge, you have to destroy all four parts of it. It's unclear if a Druge can rebuild destroyed body parts, though. The Odic is another undead spirit, in this case an undead plant spirit. It has all the abilities a Druge has, including Poison Touch, spellcasting, and the Corrupting Aura, as well as being powerless in daytime. It's completely incorporeal and instead possesses a different bush or small tree to lure in prey at night. The Odic's host glows with a purple or blue light that causes everyone within 300 feet that can see it to save or lose a level, every round that they're in the effect. It's not a good place to be. The Odic can animate branches or similar parts of the plant to attack people up to 30 feet away, again with the save or die result. It can also animate up to 6 leaves that will float on the air until they reach a living creature that the Odic will then try to charm and force to enter the light. In short, this thing's pretty nasty. Topi are a form of zombie that originate from tropical climates, typically the Isle of Dread or the Thanagoeth Archipelago. They are created with a magical ritual that shrinks the original body down to just 2 feet tall, with the exception of the head, which is left full size. They are much faster than normal zombies, able to leap 6 feet on a jump, both horizontally and vertically as well. They have a poison that acts as a slow spell. They are quite sadistic in tearing foes apart with their claws. They will follow their creator's instructions willingly, but if left without leadership, they will bide their time by catching and killing any creatures they can ambush. Now for a deep dive into the Velia, the underwater vampire, one of the most overpowered monsters in all of D&D. especially for the 5,000 XP they claimed it was worth. Velia are created through a long-lost curse that turns surface dwellers into blue-skinned humanoids with webbed feet and hands. They are famous for being damn near indestructible by most means. To permanently kill a Velia, you have to drag one out of the water for 1d4 rounds, I mean completely out. If it's got a toe in the water, it's fine. You can drive a stake through its heart, which can be hard to do underwater, or you can cast a disintegration spell on it. Reducing it to 0 hit points turns it into a stream of water that's invisible and can't be harmed anyways. It has much of the vampire's arsenal. It drains a level on a hit. It can turn into a great white shark, a manta ray, or a stream of water at will. In its human form, it can sing and try to charm a living creature within 200 feet. It's normally found with a dozen wights as bodyguards, and anyone killed by the Velia turns into a wight. It can also summon sharks to fight for it if needed. It doesn't have a lot of hit points. It doesn't need a lot of hit points. It's immune to so many attacks that it really balances out. Velia are mostly found in sunken cities, which gives the impression that they were tied to the lost nation of Taymora. Weirds are what you get when an undead spirit possesses the corpse of an unburied elf. The weird is then born with a consuming hatred of all elves and the desire to see them all burn, which it does with a sadistic game of fantasy dodgeball. They hide away in sylvan settings and hunt not just elves, but also good-aligned fae and sylvan races, which is tolerated just long enough for the treant to find out who is throwing great balls of fire at him and step on him. And I do mean great balls of fire. The weird can create 2 spheres of energy that it channels from the positive energy plane that can be used as either melee or missile weapons. The spheres do a small amount of damage, but get a large bonus against elves. Then they immediately reappear after being thrown or smashed. Weirds only exist to kill elves, so they might as well be good at it. The more powerful greater weirds will even deal more damage and have a chill effect that can penalize creatures around it. They're created when the elf corpse being possessed is a high-level elf. They are twice as tough as regular weirds, but are almost always found alone. Lightning zombies are created when a corpse is bathed in powerful magical energies that give it a semblance of life. Unlike almost all the undead on this list, lightning zombies are typically neutral, yet have some degree of intelligence. The zombie wakes up with no memory of its past life, but still has some degree of knowledge of what's expected of it. The lightning zombie will then dress and arm itself and go in search of an identity. They will have blue skin and occasionally spark, but otherwise will appear to be a living creature. They have the typical undead immunities, and their major ability to electrocute anyone they can grasp onto. Doesn't do a lot of damage, but it is constant damage unless the grip is broken, which isn't easy. The most powerful lightning zombies are evil, however. They get more hit points, which isn't that much, and their electrical powers are more damaging, but it's still not much more than a low-level boss monster. The Death Leech is a creation of the entropic immortals, in the form of a large undead ooze that can assume the appearance of most undead of vampire power or lower. It is a creature of singular purpose, created for a reason and following the will of its master unflinchingly. It will use its shape-shifting abilities to lure in prey, or to trick its intended target to make a mistake. Then it turns into its ooze form and engulfs its prey. Its biggest strength is its speed. It's a lot faster than it looks. Once the target is killed, the Death Leech will then go after the next victim it is given. Undead dragons are what happens when a dragon corpse is possessed by an evil spirit. While they are still fearsome, they are a pale shadow of their living counterparts. It can walk and attack as normal, but its broken body can't speak, cast spells, or fly. It has all the resistances it had in life. Undead red dragons are still immune to fire. It has reduced hit points compared to a normal dragon, and the intelligence is greatly reduced as well. It is a creature of instinct rather than cunning now. It just hunts any living creatures of medium size it can, mocking its habits when it was alive. It does possess a breath weapon, which is a gout of pestilence, which deals damage normal to a dragon of that type, but the damage type is always a rotting disease, which causes a loss of d4 points from your physical stats per day. It has a paralyzing attack with its claws, and its stench can cause penalties from the retching it causes. It isn't as much of a threat as a live dragon, but it's still a pretty nasty creature that can mess up the party. Elder ghouls are just more powerful versions of regular ghouls. They have more hit points than regular ghouls, along with normal ghoul abilities. The elder ghoul is noticeable from regular ghouls by the greenish glow around its head. When it finds prey, the glow begins to expand up until 25 feet, and everyone inside has to make saving throws or take penalties in combat. That's it. No epic backstory on these guys. They're just bigger ghouls with one new ability outside of general combat enhancements. Still, if you need a low-level boss, they fit in pretty easy. Mesmers are an aquatic undead that lure victims to them by creating magical mazes that, when viewed from above, create a charm effect. Creatures affected by the charm are compelled to enter the maze where the mesmer will hunt them for food, which has a substantial saving throw penalty. Their biggest defense is that they're not only immune to spells, but they reflect spells back at the caster, and enhance the spells that are being reflected. Spells that are sent back are duplicated if they're a single target, and they can hit 2 creatures of the mesmer's choice. They are a rare creature unless you are running a Sea People campaign, and even then they're not that common. If there's an undead creature you will learn to hate in Mystara, the Figarox is going to be near the top of the list. It's an undead 6-foot-long fish that is found in the darkest parts of the ocean, where it swims around with its large fins spread out, waiting for someone to touch it and get drained of a level. Worse, it can create illusions and read minds, so it will appear as anything that will lure the prey in. Failing that, it looks like a dead fish just floating there. As the Figarox doesn't actually touch things, the illusion isn't dispelled when you contact it. It's immune to non-magical weapons and spells of level 4 or less. In short, this one's a total bastard. Possessions are undead spirits that can inhabit various inanimate objects, waiting to wreak as much havoc as possible. They can possess weapons, armor, magic items, or even household items. It can animate the item to act like a flying sword or an animated armor. It can also use the magical abilities of the object like casting spells from a wand. If the possession can't feasibly kill its opponent, it will stay dormant, hoping the target will pick it up or otherwise utilize it. In this case, it will try to possess the victim like an intelligent sword and use their body to cause chaos. If exercised with a spell, the possession becomes a thin wisp of smoke where it has to find a new body quickly or perish. Vapor ghouls, despite the name, are not ghouls, but resemble wraiths. They exist in areas where thick mists are common like swamps or valleys. They can't leave the area and exist only to drive people insane. Their direct attack requires a saving throw where the victim suffers mind paralysis, where they have to repeat the last action they took for several minutes. Each hit by a vapor ghoul reduces the target intelligence by 1 point, and if the target reaches 0 intelligence, they go insane. Vapor ghouls can only be hurt by magic weapons or spells, though they aren't that hard to kill once you figure out which bit of mist is actually them. The Nosferatu are an old Mystara staple. They're kin to vampires, but instead of draining levels, they only drink blood, which makes them far more popular with adventurers already. In addition, Nosferatu can be of any alignment, and as they increase in age, they start to lose many of the vampiric weaknesses. So suck it, Strahd. The biggest change is that the Nosferatu keep all of the abilities of their former class. A 25th level cleric who gets killed by a Nosferatu gains all the abilities and weaknesses of the Nosferatu, but keeps their clerical abilities as well, along with a stern gaze from their immortal for letting it happen in the first place. While a newly formed Nosferatu might erupt into sunlight, has to sleep in a coffin, is repulsed by garlic, and can't enter a house without permission, an ancient Nosferatu is just restricted to the need to drink blood, and don't think they don't lord it over the vampires. The truly ancient Nosferatu can pass as living creatures unless you take their pulse. Evil Nosferatu will use their powers to terrorize and rule, while a good Nosferatu might use their longevity to watch over a particular region. They might only prey on humanoids and bandits, restricting themselves to animals, or even have volunteers who know their secret donate blood to keep their powerful ally functional. It's a good bait-and-switch monster for players who think they know all about vampires, only to have the Lord greet them at high noon outside of his castle. Phantoms are a collection of undead that represent individuals that died with a great desire left unfulfilled. Normally this desire is to keep killing, as most phantoms were murderers in life, but their victims might manifest as well in the right circumstances. Apparitions only appear in the mists, conjuring them if necessary. Victims trapped in the mists must save or become enthralled, at which point the apparition will manifest and tear out their throats. It has the standard phantom abilities, which include the ability to stay incorporeal until prey is nearby, inflicting fear on those who see it, and the ability to resist being turned by a cleric, and possibly even turn the fear effect back onto the cleric trying to turn him, though they can't stop destroy effects from blowing them to ash. Shades are undead serial killers that are looking to rack up a body count. They have the ability to surprise their prey and possibly kill them with a heart attack. If it manifests, the first creature it attacks will have to save or die from the shock. Then the Shade pulls out its dagger and starts stabbing all the witnesses before it manifests and starts looking for new prey. Visions are the undead victims of foul rituals and appear as a crowd rather than a single creature, though the creatures in the vision all share the same hit points. When the victims move into the vision's area, the crowd will start to appear and start wailing, forcing a saving throw where the victims will sit down and start wailing with them. Then the vision attacks. There will be 2d4 creatures in the crowd and they attack in unison. A vision is just a single undead creature regardless of the size of the crowd. None of the creatures will appear to take any damage until the vision loses all of its hit points, in which case all the creatures disappear at once. Reveners are going to end up on your player's most hated list. It's your standard skeleton wrapped in a cloak, found in ancient tombs with a heap load of hit points. It doesn't do any physical damage. What it does do is steal senses. It drains them more precisely. When a Revener hits you, you get to roll on a chart to see what you lose. Lose your touch and it's a permanent -4 dexterity. Sight and hearing are obvious. Scent and taste just make your life miserable. You can even lose your sixth sense, which makes certain magical items useless. Worst part, if you fail your saving throw, it's permanent, rather than just 2d10 rounds. And Cure Blindness won't help, the sense has been drained. You need a restoration spell. Then if you manage to bring this bastard down, you're going to find out he's only worth 1700 XP. Told you he was going to be on that list. Lastly, we've got the Revenant. Not the 5th edition Revenant, the Mystaran Revenant, also known as the Draugr. It's an undead spirit in the corpse of a human warrior. Remember to sanctify your cemetery, kids. These abominations are rather clever. They look like zombies, but they have a predatory cunning they will use to maximum effect. They can summon specters for aid, have the same poison touch, chill presence, and corrupting influence that other spirits have. They like to hang around zombie hordes and go after the rather surprised party who were just expecting slow-moving zombies and not turbocharged murder machines. Revenants live to kill. It's their favorite pastime, and they are good at it. That's the Undead of the Known World. A lot more than I expected when I started going through both the creature catalogs, the rule cyclopedia, and the monstrous compendium, as well as the Savage Coast Monster Manual. Some of them are just kind of there. Others are truly unique, and a few are just downright brutal. Next week, I'm going to look at the rest of the undead with Undead of the Savage Coast, or just because you're dead doesn't mean you don't want Cinebril anymore. But until next week, remember, dead is dead, parts is parts, and dead guys is parts.